it's a privilege to be called to play an opening like this. Okay, one can sing it, whistle it, listen to it on a recording, but to touch it, it's really a privilege. To serve it is an honor. To be in closeness with it is emotional. And not only for these contradictory facts of not too slow, not too fast, it's a Sicilian dance, dotted rhythm, repeated notes, melodic line, breathing, rest, only Adagio out of 27 concerti, therefore has to be slower than the andantes of the other mostly. All these facts, blah blah blah, it is true, but it's not it. It's only what it is that it touches you when you look at it, when you hear it. And every time you finish playing it, you feel like, did I really finally serve it right? Are the proportions right? Is the intent and the result right? That humility is a Sisyphus situation, constantly trying to reach that which drops and we start. And it's quite depressing when I mention to some students that sometimes practicing and playing the piano, in the case, is more like building ephemeral sandcastles on the beach, and the wave always comes back to erase it. And we restart. And every time we think we're going to build it the way we always want it. It is not about us, and it's not about the piece even. It's about the endeavor of going to it, making oneself more transparent between the piece and the audience. And when I start this tempo, I could think the 16th note should be almost a grace note, in which case I will rebound on the next downbeat through the 8th note of the weaker beat, as we call it. And of course, the faster, the easier to connect the phrase structure. With a little bit more makeup because of the darker eyes of the Neapolitan sixth, and then the simply sad F sharp minor, a bit like Gilles by Watteau, the painter, the sad clown just looking at you. With his goodness, its simplicity, without even a message other than, oh, that's what I can do. Might be the same. The 6/8 pattern choice of meter 2, the long short, short long cradling of the Sicilian 2 between the rondo in A minor and the slow movement of the A major Concerto 488. Nevertheless, they represent, for the listener probably as well as for the performer, a sense of humility. Don't have to say much to say the right thing. I can hint the relative major rather than express it. And my condition is in A minor. But I explore it, I battle it, I forward it. I go to each detail of chromatic effects. I even use this dissonance of the 7th degree, the leading tone going up or descending, and together provoked dissonance. Like in we have a lot of possibilities to exaggerate the effect or capacity to withhold it and just play. As if we talk to ourselves in an aparté, as they say in theater, during a monologue, where you don't loud voice express your thoughts, but inwards you think about yourself. Here we have the dissonances in the same bar twice. Provoked, he could have done everything to avoid them. No, 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 no. Of course, today more than yesterday, because of research, we have found copies of performers of just Mozart's, or practically after Mozart's time, with written out improvisations which are customary in these slow movements with large values, arias by pianists like Barbara Ployer, for whom Mozart wrote it. And so we have the authenticity of the knowledge that, of course, not a recorded audio recording, which would have been, of course, perfect for us to compare, even if not to imitate, since it's so charismatically unique to Mozart himself improvising on the piano. But I find it striking, because even if we do, then I could continue more, but I'm purposely stopping for once. I don't indulge in it, is because somehow when you visit an ancient ruin, the history behind it, the fact that you only see few standing columns, let's say, if it is, of course you can imagine how it was when it was complete, and with computer animation you can even rebuild it in 3D and all, of course. But somehow you get attached today to the ruin of it and the beauty of the design of it, almost like as if aesthetically you like it so emptier than filled with its completion of the day before it was demolished by the passage of time. And I find it same way that those distant notes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, of course it could be one way or the other. Of course, to some it's too much, to some it's not enough. Scholars, performers, jurors, publishers, editors, correctors, oh my God, so many people. But the fact is when you play it, you're alone. You're alone with your consciousness, you're alone with your love for it, you're alone with your what it means to you, regardless if it's wrong in the eyes of the erudite, and regardless if it's wrong in the eyes of the purists. At some point you just do, and you're given that chance to do it. And that is a privilege, as I was saying earlier, which I always thank for. Is it because of my perfect pitch, or the chance that my teacher brought me to play the A minor rondo as a first piano piece as a child with her? Perhaps it prepared me to be receptive to this world of Mozart's intimacy in music, where he speaks his soul. Not only, but also. And naturally, everybody feels the same. I mean, it's not a wild secret that Mozart's grace is incredible in music, melodic gift and harmonic marvel, and this kind of lightness of being that makes him so unreal to most of us compared to the more connecting to Beethoven's earthy, hurting, but rewarding, uplifting humanity. Whenever Mozart seems to just sip down on us from some kind of gracious evidence of facts that we don't connect to, because most of us can't even imagine that level of lightness and depth at the same time as gracefulness, as some perhaps arrogance in the eyes of some. And certainly in Salieri's view not, but in the way people observed Salieri's supposed to be have been jealousy of Mozart. But he saw in his own humility the reality, because one always makes one's own realization in the mirror. But of course, self-esteem and social conditions make things different, and at least temporarily, not forever. But who are we to philosophize on the meaning of things? It's easier to only connect to how to play the most beautifully this music. Naturally, we cannot disconnect it from what it means to us, or meant to us, or will mean to us, even if it's in constant evolution, never really frozen its meaning in time or space or place. The second entrance teacher would say, what is it, this entrance in D major for the fantasy, or in this case A major for the concerto after the dark F sharp? Is it a tenderness? Is it all these things that we want to connect humanly to? But in fact, as she would say, it's only what the music itself is. And you pass from the two descents, more chromatic the second, and then all of a sudden A major, which is a banal tonality after all. It is it. But in the eyes of a dark F sharp minor, all of a sudden it becomes like the breath of fresh air that gives hope to humanity. And as always in Mozart's expression operatically, is a smile with a tear. He has to play minor. Or the diminished third, C, natural A sharp, squeezing the passing to the dominant B, the fifth. So from a squeezed third, diminished to be so altered, then we have a leap of double octave, a 15th. Of course, naturally naturally is the kind of place where you would wish to have a glissando like on a violin, if not on the voice. That is ridiculous, but nevertheless, the more you search, the more you find, the least you wish. It's almost like yes but no, because you want just to feel that extreme tension that leads to the 7/6 with the flat 2 dissonance, but this time stretch compared to the of the opening, which are closer. Demonstrative pain. He manages to make us believe that we were in minor for so long when it was just relative major, few bars away ago. So when we re-enter in A major for the officially middle section, Ländler-like, with 2 against 3, with a little clarinet going whoop, 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 almost playful in the sense of child play. Filling every beat with 3/16 notes to almost forget the Siciliana with its short, long pulse, heart pulse movement. Pum pum, pum pum, pum pum. And here all of a sudden, every beat is filled with smiles. Triplets of clarinet, bass clarinet, bass clarinet. And the piano plays in unison and in thirds. Ascension of the sixth, the drop of the octave, all the effects of the beautifully eloquent Mozartian aria. He studied from Bach, of course, and from Pergolese, and from all the. So we almost think we're in an opera aria. When you love somebody, you say, but really I love you, I really do. And the redundance is not too much, because it's tenderness, it's terms of endearment. He ends the middle section aria with this endless trill, shaking and arriving on an open third, which is in fact the 2 notes that are common between the A major middle section and the F sharp minor of the relative minor for the slow movement. This kind of bifocal cadence modulation. A major, F sharp minor. It's kind of funny to show, but I like that idea because it has something of a proximity of the lightness and the shadow, the chiaroscuro. In 1 second you can drop down in F sharp minor. It's not that far. You don't even need to go through other dominant or any kind of passing tones. And so he ends up closing with suspensions, the third into second, major and minor, and then almost it's kind of church music cadence 4/3 suspended. chosen a more dramatic way to return. He does that in the rondo in A minor. He goes... Fast forward. Also the perky trill. Of course, it's ridiculous to overstate it, because by making this huge diminuendo, I just ruined its simplicity. It should be just the music itself speaking. It's like most people when they play the recap of the first movement of D960 by Schubert. It goes in G-flat major. Equally as in the opening and exposition during the recap, he does this time a little bifurcation by F sharp minor, and immediately we project ourselves, oh yeah, it will be a sad demonstration of the song. But in the case of the D960, he does go in major, in minor, and because of the bifocal modulation, back in A major. In fact, he does not go sad in minor, so to say, for the mood, and I think the pianist shouldn't either. The F sharp minor passing by bridge as in fact an enhancement towards A major, and not play the on the surface observed few bars of minor other than back in major. I think it's just a modulation through minor. Therefore, I would advocate the same color. Even if somebody would say in the hall, but this is unsensitive musically, how can you not express with a little bit dynamic difference the minor from the major? I think it's only in the change of the mode itself, and immediately continues, as if to retroactively then tell the audience member who would have had this reaction, you see, in fact, we don't need to do that, because we just had a passing cloud into the blue sky. That was my kind of talk. But whatever it is, we can choose to express in major, in the rondo, and then return to pianissimo. Or just and remain mezzo something. And at the end of the trill in the relative major of 488 slow movement. As if to prepare us to go through this return in F sharp minor, he drops this little drops of, I don't know what, I would say rays in the flute, perhaps the drops of something, tears, who knows. But in any case, these very austere two clarinets hurting themselves in the dissonances of the suspension. In minor, it's so intense to hear this dissonance of the minor second, like in the Stabat Mater by Pergolesi. So many examples of this kind of dissonances, but the way they come, it's the way you choose. It's like the chef, the way he brings in an ingredient and all of a sudden the taste buds go, oh, when it's obviously an ingredient that you perhaps have known before, but not in the same place. So all these things come to mind when you play, but you try to erase them in the inner film of the movie you make yourself. In thoughts, in images, in feelings, and mostly in counting, to keep the pace, because the pace is really the tracks on which you build your expression. And you finish by being sometimes overwhelmed by your own, or perhaps betrayed by your own emotion. It's a difficult fact, but one has to practice it in order to organize one's thoughts and say, okay, this is how I want to go, from this section to this point to that point. And then once you go through it, at the moment of going, you accept the unexpected. It happens, that stage. And then all this blah blah talk about it disappears in thin air. It's only the few beats that connected to each other create their magic, just like some words in some poem, all of a sudden the way they're organized bring your tears to the eyes, or smile, or because it reminds you of a saying of somebody who you love, or something that happens that triggers at some very personal, intimate level. You don't have to even explain it or express it, perhaps unless they're a scholar, but even so, no. And now we are in the recap of our 99 ultimate bars altogether of this 6/8 movement. Similarly, the same opening, which according to performance practice must have been largely improvised differently than the first time, if at all. We're in the civilization of recitation from the score, so it's very demanding on the integrity of one's aesthetics to choose if and when to remove a piece, nothing but a note, from the set-in-stone truth in the score. It's not an easy task to undertake with one's own integrity. The second time he uses the subterfuge of the deceptive cadence to delay the resolution. Of course, the dotted half with the winds, most likely improvised, but again naked here like a beautiful ruin, or rather the design of the ruin is its own phrasing of broken columns. In the opening, but the second time we have the same orchestra answer. This is the same tutti. The orchestra cannot stop and start enjoying these harmonizations. And then leap over the octave. And it becomes aestheticizing. I don't know the word. It's wrong. Always the pulse. To return to the final coda, of course, it's an obvious fact. Coda is always final. He goes through this little dialogue in the left hand, which is unusual since most of the Mozart clavier concerti are for right hand, whereas the aria and the left hand used to be his conducting. But here he added specifically a left hand thematical section part in a playful dialogue with the bassoon. On the dominant pedal. I think it's very meaningful because all of a sudden the loneliness of the two solos followed by the two tutti, which are so fulfilling orchestrally, and all of a sudden you have the capacity of dialoguing not as an accompaniment but in chamber music. Above these bassoon staccati intervals, in dialogue with the left hand of the piano, you have this suspended chorale in dropping chromaticisms, which inevitably passes to the major third with a sort of hinted hope back in minor. No more than in D916 Schubert, madly sad to happy. I think here it's not either, it's just the effect of the chromaticisms. But since most of us in the later Romantic era that we serve on the piano are so connecting the minor with sadness and the major with happiness, it would be lying oneself to not acknowledge the fact that it's even if a nano moment passing through the brain or the heart or the soul, we think of it. I know it's cheesy to call it sunshine with a smile, with a tear, but it is something of this kind. And after all, sentiment is not a belittling of music or of humanity. Sentimentalism can become an affect by itself, so I agree that that could be overstated easily according to the individual points of views of the people. But by itself, it shouldn't be something we should always fight against. I have so many students who say, am I playing too romantic? As if too and romantic are by itself an exclusion of what we should be, or an exaggeration that we are sort of doomed to. But I think that it is in the piece, it's in the DNA of the composer, it's suggested, it's hinted, sometimes it's displayed operatically, sometimes it's just the inner voice. Like the G minor quartet, the quintet with two violas. Second theme, second time in the original key. He wouldn't put all these facts. He could have done the second time the relative major theme in G major and finish in major. The second theme was the first time, but when you have a principal minor key sonata form with two themes development and you have to go to the major main key but remaining in minor for the originally stated second theme in major, it changes the mood. Schumann also does it in the F sharp minor sonata. And some composers choose to finish in major in the recap in order to sort of organize a sense of hope. Probably not, or perhaps because it prepares also for the key of the middle movement, or perhaps it's just without an explanation, and rather be so. Rather be so. And I asked Mr. Dutilleux before he died in his very old age, why in 1940s he composed a sonata in F sharp minor, he told me it's because I was quoting something, but at this late 90s age of his, he didn't remember what. And then I remember it's full of descending thirds. And that's the theme, of course, sort of the leitmotif theme of most of the first movement and most of the sonata, actually. And when I asked him if he couldn't recall, I recalled myself the F-sharp minor scherzo of the D minor Brahms sonata for violin and piano. And his sonata finishes, I mean, he has so much more. That's even the opening theme of the first movement. Of course, anybody can write in descending third by itself, even Beethoven did. So it doesn't mean that you can trace all these borrowings or some inspiration in some captivated, some quotation of something else. After all, it's not a rare interval. But the fact that I mentioned him, that I thought perhaps that could be my suggestion for his quotation, he recalled that my later chamber music pianist, teacher, who was his wife Geneviève Joie, when they were newlyweds, she was practicing that sonata by Brahms with her violin partner, Michel Auclair. And he said, that's what I was quoting. Now, it doesn't mean much, because what does it mean to us? Nothing. Like the day I completed Glenn Gould's piano sonata because we had a missing page, I guessed what he would develop is very basic. And when we got the page, after the recording session, it corresponded most likely to that, according to the tone engineer. So we redid it. But in any case, some things you can guess. It's not like wild guess. But why the choice of the tonality, like I asked you to you, why F sharp minor, besides that comment, he didn't really say, because probably there is no reason to say. Of course, in some instruments, you can choose because of the preference of sharps or flat keys for the way the instruments are made to play. But beyond these symbolisms for some and so on, so forth, there shouldn't be a choice that has to be decisively explained. Perhaps there is no reason, no particular reason. And although it's tempting to expect an answer that will enlighten us about it, we can also say, therefore, that this return in Mozart's dominant pedal with chromatic descent is only because of the chromatic scale that this makes us tender, feel that moment of smile in the tears of the minor. Or is it that he chose purposely to have it displayed in that way? And so what is our place as musicians to be the mediums between what we receive and what we project? I always think about that. This is, I spoke in the early moments of today that this is a privilege to serve it, and probably it's a privilege to also be careful not to overdress it with one's own feelings about it, while keeping them there to enlighten it for us. But it's food for thought, because now it's embedded in your thought, and when you hear this moment passing by in this very, 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 very casual, so to say, if anything can be ever casual in Mozart, but obvious chromatic descent, you would think about that moment, and it will just start resonating in you with your own meanings for what it could mean for you. You could reject it, and I think it would be healthy to reject it with your arguments, or you could accept it, and it can just grow in you as an awareness. And there's nothing more meaningful in a pianist playing than the intention that you hear in their playing, rather than the realization. Sometimes, as I said, the unexpected on stage happens, and we miss a note, or we miss a phrase, or we miss everything. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just go through what we think, and even if later we reject, oh, did I play so slow, I played so fast, or such and such doesn't do what I'm supposed to be doing, and why am I not doing like such and that? All these, too many things clogging the brain. But it remains there, regardless regardless how we think of it. Or just it would be nice to give in concert several options, but you only have one time to go through, one life to live. Who knows? It didn't speak. In the coda of the A minor rondo, you have the same sense of perhaps just ephemeral passing. Of course, there is the A major middle section of the rondo. Child, I always thought it was like wearing a long wig, like I used to see in the pictures in the Musée du Louvre and so forth. Then you have the return of the A minor after these moments of burst. All these chromatic drops, Mozart has so many of his toolbox tools, and you feel like in a very dramatic way, demonstratively so, he returns in A minor compared to return in F sharp minor from the 488. Whenever in the A major, A minor rondo, second half, after the A minor restart of the Fantasy's original theme, I purposely wanted to play it in a way that is more reserved, or perhaps for me more reserved. And the first half, starting after the introduction, which he took from Bach's first prelude, to sort of prepare the atmosphere of seriousness, the sad song with utter expressivity and all the affects that I wanted to, in my way, extrovertedly demonstrate. It was a purposeful demonstration of two ways of playing the same piece before the coda, which was an effective ending, a bit like Liszt in his first ending of the sonata, bombastic and not introverted, as he finally, of course, did and chose to do. Mozart also had a return to the D minor after the D major coda. But for performance purposes, it was so effective to end in this slight allegro that most of the publishers keep that. And even if, or if not, the lightness of the happiness that is suggested operatically, even if it's polite or rococo or more than that, or just like biting life like a peach with juice and just happy, like Mozart used to like musically to appear almost childishly happy, I guess I would say. The return in major after that in minor could have been perhaps too much philosophical. Perhaps he didn't want that day. In the D minor concerto, Mozart does that, end up in major, like a big laugh after all these very dramatic diminished 7, sorry. Beethoven, who played that only D minor Mozart concerto with his repertoire, supposedly, even the cadenza for it, in his C minor concerto number 3, which has the theme of the Mozart's own C minor, which he heard, he chose, after this borrowing probably or not, in the coda of it, to also finish in major. It is a coda in 6/8. And Mozart and Beethoven played it. So perhaps it doesn't have to be that you finish in major and minor sonata, concerto in this case, rather than sonata because of the second theme in the original key. Even in the Mozart sonata in A minor, which he wrote for in Paris, according to the moment of his mother's death, the second theme. In C major, almost like playful, perhaps memories of happy childhood, to demonstrate in contrast of the pain of the opening pumping chords, tristinato of triads, it doesn't exist as a word, and then in the second, in the recap, the theme, which was simply in C major, becomes chromatically in A minor, which is on top of it. We could have chosen to finish in major. Well, of course he didn't, but some finish in major their minor principal key. It is probably what we project ourselves more than what it is. But in the sense of the slow movement in the middle of a concerto, which has 3 movements, and the first movement of this A major is gentle. major, the three sharps, a bit like the clarinet concerto in question by Mozart, well, also because of the Masonic symbolism of the Trinity, but one could always not even know that, and if one don't know that, it's as beautiful too. Sometimes too much knowledge, it's too much. But the last movement, it's also a burst of joy compared to the gentle. So therefore, inside it, in the heartland of it, it's like a glimpse inside the soul. Smile with a tear. Thank you.